Hello everyone and welcome to our Pokémon Retrospective, where we're going to go through each one of the Pokémon generations and give you our memories and thoughts on each one of those.
Yep. So we're going to be starting off with the original and what a lot of people still think. A lot of people still think it's the best. Pokemon Red and Blue, and a little bit of yellow.
Slash yellow, slash green.
Slash green. Yeah, Generation 1 in general. So, what are your thoughts on Generation 1 looking back?
See, I've played this within the last 12 months and I enjoyed it just as much as any other game, minus Sun and Moon. Because
Really?
those Sun and Moons are probably my most favourites now, but then before that, definitely the originals. Like they still play really well despite the sort of graphical problems that you might think that you have, but you just ignore that because the gameplay is still sound.
And I think I'm on the opposite end, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, especially now that we have the remakes, I don't see a need to come back to this particular game anymore.
Not even for nostalgia. Do the remakes give you enough nostalgia?
No, the remakes just play better to me. Because I find Kanto as a region quite slow-ish. Not the slowest, but maybe it's because I've also had fatigue from playing the original Red so much when I was younger. And I've only played Leaf Green twice.
Okay.
Fully. So I'm still keen on exploring Leaf Green, but I don't think I can go back now that we have better mechanics and the game is fixed.
There was never broken though. There were just things that nasty people like you could exploit, like getting silly level 100 Gengars and things at the beginning of the game. But if you played it like a normal person, no problems.
What's the problem? I'll race you to beat Pokemon Yellow. I'll do it in a minute.
Yeah, but that's it's invalid. That's just silly argument. You know this.
Yeah, that's okay. Those things and some of the other things Psychics being way too overpowered, the lack of a special attack and special defense.
Yeah, definitely.
Few other things, the lack of finesse. I know it's the first one in the series, so we have to cut it a bit of slack. We didn't have any.
Cut it a bit of slack, of course you do.
Yeah, but considering that how the next few games went on such massive leaps and bounds ahead of this one.
With hindsight, you have to cut it a lot of slack, considering the amount of changes that have been in this series.
Yeah, especially. But you know what? The region's solid. The variety
I like
of
the
Pokemon's
fact
solid.
that it's not just a straight line of where you have to go. You keep on coming back to places and have these amazing memories of going onto the forums and things and communicating with other people playing the game and trying to figure out the next step. Or if even better feeling is finding it out yourself, just because it's not a straightforward route around the region towards the Elite Four.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with that. I like the minor elements of non-linearity here. Aside from that, Pokemon variety is quite solid, but it's the original 150.
The thing is, every other generation took inspiration from this one, so it's very easy to say that this is the best generation for Pokemon variety. And I think if most people would say that a lot of their top 10 come from this 151. What's your favorite from this gen? And then is your overall favorite from this gen as well?
No, my favorite from this gen is Charizard. I know I'm a fanboy. But my favorite Pokemon overall is Typhlosion.
Okay. So you're just a fire nerd.
Oh yeah, massively so. I picked Incineroar. I was I know he looks stupid. I've picked all the fire starters no matter how crap they've been recently.
Delphox was cool.
Delphox was quite cool actually. I'll give you that. Okay, we'll get onto that thing. But especially when the Virtual Console re-releases came out, tried them and I just couldn't bring myself to play them through.
I agree with that. I bought it and I fully expected to play it, but I just haven't done it yet, and I'm not sure what's holding me back. Maybe it's like you say before, just because we've played it so many times, and to go and do that familiar route again, because the amount that we've played it, we've done all the different typing combinations, the different teams that we wanted. Because when I go and replay a Pokemon game now, before I start it up, I'll look at the Pokedex, pick out exactly what 6 Pokemon I want to fight the Elite Four.
I do that too.
And so it takes, when you do that sort of 5 to 10 different times, there's not much more you can do with the game, is there really?
Especially when because it's the first generation, you're so limited towards which 6 you bring forward, which 6 have good type matchups, and but also which 6 are good.
Yeah, I mean, mind you, these games are a bit more forgiving, so luckily you can sort of have a bit of a play around with that.
6 Alakazams is fine anyway.
It actually is for this one.
You could just everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, thoughts on Red is that obviously good start to the series. This is the definitive game still.
Yeah.
It's by far not the best for me, but
I think a good way of saying it is if someone was new to the series, you wouldn't say play this one first. You'd say play one of the shinier sort of 3D ones first, but then you'd always say have a go at this just to see where the roots are, and then you're still going to have fun if you like those 3D versions as well.
So let's move on to Generation 2. Oh, this game. Alright, let's hear your opinions on Generation 2 Gold, Silver, Crystal first.
That surprise after you think you've finished the game and then all of a sudden the map doubles in size and you get to replay Gen 1.
Well, Kanto's not quite as big. It's more like you play half of Kanto, but still it's like you get to have the post-game.
Can you imagine having that sort of surprise in this day and age?
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to pay double the price.
It's like oh well, imagine if you bought Skyrim and you could just play like all half of Oblivion again. Like what?
Yeah, has someone not brought that out yet?
I loved this game. This is until about X. This is the game I've spent the most on, I'd say.
I think I know why you like this game so much, because you're such a shiny hunter. And this is the first one to do breeding.
It was actually, yeah, and it was the first one to introduce shinies as well.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, I love this game for a lot of reasons. Like, the variety's good. Mm-hmm. Obviously keeping, like, true to the original 150 and having, like, some clones and getting a little bit creative. Mm-hmm. It didn't go really above and beyond with its Pokemon types, but they were generally okay. It definitely relied on the backlog a lot, but you can do that when it's the direct sequel.
If you look at games, the recent ones like your X and Y and Sun and Moon, they also did the same thing. So it's a good way to refresh yourself and bring existing players back into something that they already know.
Point I want to mention as well, I think it's definitely Typhlosion. Typhlosion has the exact same stats as Charizard.
Oh, really?
So they're quite aware of that. So they wanted to ease them in, like, if you raise this, it's a lot like raising this sort of thing. Love the region to bits. Like we talked about the non-linearity. I love Johto to bits because it never feels like you're quite looping around all the areas, but it's still a continent, so you are like free to backtrack across certain points. I love the region sort of feel as well, like that sort of like Asian influence as well.
It feels partly because of the graphical improvement, but it feels much more like a Japanese island, like what they wanted each region to feel like anyway.
This game had so much meat to the bones of what Pokemon could be. Because we're going to get into Gen 3 in a bit anyway and talk about the little parts they added. I feel like this is probably the generation which added the most out of any, because we've got more typings, we've got breeding, berries, and the berries.
Just think, we wouldn't have the Pokepelago without this.
Oh. My God.
We're not even being sarcastic. We love the Pokepelago.
I don't play the game anymore, but I still play it for the Pokepelago.
Do you seriously?
Yes.
So sad.
But I love how they've added like new typings, different varieties of typings as well. A bit more battle strategy, one with special attack and special defense being split. We don't get the full split until Gen 4, but I feel like every single other generation has been iterative and tweaking and improving. I'd say this is the big game changer for me. And like I said, there's essentially 1.5 Pokemon games in here. There's just so much to do in it, and I just can't rate this game enough, especially at the time. And like I said with Red, I can't really stomach playing Red again. I could happily play this again.
So even though it's a good game and a half, half a game more, you still put those hours into it.
I could put all those hours into this version as well.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting.
Something about how unbelievably dull and monotone Red looks. Obviously, this has got colour in it, and it makes it that little bit more vibrant.
You're not a fan of Fat Pikachu?
Not a fan of Fat Pikachu, Broccoli Venusaur, Derpy Golem, or Fat Blastoise.
Fat Blastoise was the best.
Or Meth Addict Mew as well.
Oh, yes.
Not really a fan of all those. Or my favourite's the Geodude one where he doesn't even have like rocks. He has hair. Yeah.
The Alola Geodude.
I'll go back to this game anytime. If it weren't for a certain other one we're going to talk about later, I would say, this is probably one of my... This is the definitive one for me.
I want to jump on an issue really quickly that I know we're going to come on to later, and that's legendary Pokemon. So I know later we're going to say that they're a bit there's a bit too many of them, they're underwhelming. In this one, you had the 3 dogs that are roaming around the region, and then you have the 2 cover legendaries. Do you think that's too many coming from a Gen 1, where we also have 3, the bird types, sort of roaming the region in some respect, and then the Mew and Mewtwo?
I'm fine with that. The dogs, I hate them because I hate roaming around the region and trying to chase them when they're frozen and they have 1 HP and they run away all the time. So
on that, we'll come to games in a few minutes where there'll also be 3 dogs or 3 other things apart from the box legendaries. Why is that a problem going forward? It's not a problem here, but why is it a problem in subsequent games?
I have the problem with this because Gen 1 might not as much, because I think the Gen 2 ties in the legendaries quite well into the game.
So it's a story thing for you?
Not necessarily, but they're tied into the mythos as well, like, the Brass Tower and Tin Tower.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be there, but it gives a nice excuse for these dogs.
Yeah.
And having Ho-Oh and Lugia, especially come partway through the game, you just hear about them. They're legends. No one says, "Oh, look, Lugia's returning and he's going to destroy the world," and all that.
Yeah, like 10 seconds before you finish the game, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like, this is what you do before Gym 7 and 8. No, they're legends, and you finding them is like a big enough effort because no one expects you to. And plus, they've got cool backgrounds to them. All of the other legendaries from Gen 2 onwards have like this really nice, complicated, rich background which they derive from. But then again, Gen 1 has Electric Bird, Ice Bird, and Fire Bird.
Zappy Bird.
Zappy Bird, yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, simplicity sometimes is the best. So now we're moving on to Gen 3 with Pokemon Sapphire, Pokemon Ruby, Pokemon Emerald, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Generation 1 remakes too.
Yeah, this is the point, I think, when Pokemon really lost its steam. In terms of popularity, I still think these are good games, but this is when like Yu-Gi-Oh! Was taking over as like the nerd thing. So these games suffered quite a bit from backlash, especially as the people who were the perfect age when Red came out were teenagers when this came out. So they were like, "Oh, you still play Pokemon?" Oh. Yeah,
then it became like cool to play Pokemon
again.
These.
Then it became like cool again.
I really like the environment of this. I like the fact that they went into all these different locations, like the volcanic springs up in the north, and then all these different changes, rather than having this sort of, like we say, we really enjoyed the generic Japanese feel to Gen 2, but this took it a step further with making it a bit more video game friendly.
Yeah,
where it's really hard to get bored of what you're seeing.
Where it's like
you.
Desert, volcano, Iceland.
Yeah. It arcs back to your Zelda world map, if you know what I mean.
A bit, yeah. I like Hoenn as a region, to be honest. I think it's definitely one of the better regions of the entire series. Yeah, I never got the too much water complaint.
Is it not a 7.8?
No.
A bit higher.
a bit higher. Pokemon variety in this is a little bit more, I'd say, cartoony. A little bit less realistic. Definitely more cartoony, but it's fine. The starters are all fantastic. The backlog isn't too bad in this one.
No, they do the thing that helps that is they do a really good job of introducing good new Pokemon that suit that region really nicely. Like the one that springs to my mind is Kecleon, and where you've got that whole rainforest environment, and of course you only find him there. And with Tropius as well, and you've got Milotic in the sort of too much water section of the game, and they do a really good job of marrying up that really good job in the environment with the Pokemon design.
The variety I like. Some of them are hit and miss to me, but I don't tend to rant about bad Pokemon designs. I just tend to sort of brush them to the side because they're quite inoffensive.
I mean, I feel so sorry for the design team, especially now trying to design new Pokemon in a 700 strong, 800 strong roster.
Exactly.
It's just a silly job.
This is the point when I think Pokemon went on a very bad trend, which I don't think they've ever got out of.
I know you're not a fan of this sort of Beyond Earth, sort of mystic sort of storytelling, whereas I am, and for this one and for Gen 4, that's what stands out for me as a good thing.
I'd use it as the example of you start off with like your grunts, and I'm going to draw a lot of parallels to Gen 4 for now. You start off with like your basic grunts, and then you find out they have to catch a legendary Pokemon to do something, and then it goes wrong, and then, oh, what's that? You're the only person to save the world by capturing them in a quick ball or something. And the entire team disappears after that.
You-
And that's it.
You just ruined that whole series. No, you haven't. I know. I like that. For the first couple of times, I don't mind it. When they kept on doing it after Gen 4, then it annoyed me. But the first few times, I didn't mind it because it introduced you to the Pokemon before the end of the game, which is really important. The imported Pokemon, rather, like the legendaries, it's really important to build that story. And also, you get the sort of the nice comic-y nature of the Team Magma and Team Aqua. I'm a big fan of like the rival gangs not taking themselves too seriously, like Team Skull, Team Rocket, and Team Aqua and Magma to an extent, because they're a bit jokey, regardless of how serious their leaders are.
Quick final thoughts on Gen 3. Horribly misaligned by the fan base at the time. I'd still go back and play this because obviously it looks they use the Game Boy Advance hardware so well.
I think
it's such a vibrant game as well. I'd be really happy to pop this in any day and play it again.
We can see that by the amount of sales that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire had. That the people who were swayed by the different little genres like your Yu-Gi-Ohs and that sort of stuff, that they came back and they knew, and they now know that this is a really good gem.
Yeah, and shortly after this, I think Game Freak might have realised, due to the relative unpopularity of this game, they introduced the first set of remakes, which is Leaf Green and Fire Red. Now, I said earlier that I'm not much of a fan of the original games now, because I have these to go, and although I haven't played much of them, this is how I play Gen 1 now. Just because we have all the tweaked refinements of the previous games, because although it doesn't mean much now with Game Boy connectivity being non-existent, but we've got more refined battles, we've got prettier sprites to look at. A lot of bugs, well, pretty much all bugs have been cleared up now. It doesn't go out of its way to fix that many things, though, in a way.
It does a lot of things well, though, especially in the environment, because bear in mind this is the first remake, and there's quite a distance between this and the original, and to have that immense colour palette, as soon as you turn it on, you just think, you hark back to the original, and you just think what a change this is, and like you say, in the sprites, it's just an amazing difference, even though it's still the same 2D engine that we've got. It's not like we've gone, like we were saying with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, we've gone to the 3D model. This was that sort of amount of change back in that day.
They could have added a bit more variety in terms of just not having Bellsprouts everywhere or Rattatas or whatever. They could have made a lot of things incrementally better, but I think they chose the right thing overall and made it safe.
Yeah, I mean, the reason you buy this is to bring back memories of when you played the original Gen 1, and by changing things, by putting Pokemon in from Gen 2 or 3, really just sort of dissolves any of that feeling that you get, simply because it's not how you remember it.
Unfortunately so, yeah. But
at the end of the day, Gen 1's to us is a collector's item, and no matter how you change that, it can only be for the worse, because that's how it is. You know, it's like a holy grail, you can't touch it.
Thoughts on Gen 3 overall then? Good, fine. It's just that nostalgia's starting to wear off now, and boy is that nostalgia going to be tested and praised when we get into Gen 4.